السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So our topic, alhamdulillah, today is positivity in Islam. So I'm hoping everyone's feeling positive, inshallah. Very extremely important topic, and you'd think it's something very surfaced. I'm going to mention maybe just a few hopeful things, and end of talk. Then maybe a few instances where the Prophet ﷺ was hopeful. But I'm not talking about being hopeful or having hope. I'm talking about positivity, or another word for that synonym is optimism. And I gave a lecture on this once before, and that was exactly 1 hour, more or less. But you can be positive that I won't do an hour, inshallah. I had to stay positive when I saw the barbecuing outside. I said, is anyone really going to sit? I mean, there's barbecue going outside. But alhamdulillah, staying positive. The topic is extremely important. I can't emphasize. I really can't. And the reason is because it has a connection with the core of faith. Faith is something we don't argue over. Faith is something we don't compromise. Faith is what makes us what we are. There's no compromise. There's no ifs or buts. There's no maybe or not in La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah is one thing, as Muslims, we stick to. It never changes, will never change. Positivity has a direct connection with that, with La ilaha illallah, and I'll explain that after. It has a direct connection with how we think of Allah. You probably heard the idea of your thoughts of Allah. In that hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that Allah Azza wa Jalla said, I am what my servant thinks of me. You probably heard this hadith. So how does a person think of Allah? What type of image? And when I say image, I'm not talking about an actual picture, but I'm talking about an experience. What type of experience, emotion blooms in your heart when I say Allah? What do you think of? Do you think of Rahman, or do you think of another name? Or perhaps none of the names. Do you think of something an image that you've created in your heart? Where does that image stem from? So how you think of Allah has to do with whether you're a positive or negative person as well. How you think of yourself, which is extremely important, because how you know yourself is how you know Allah. So if you're positive about yourself, if you're confident within yourself, you'll have confident, strong faith about Allah as well. The Prophet ﷺ spoke about positivity. Allah Azza wa Jalla himself spoke about positivity. I'll give a little bit of a history though before we actually talk about the concepts, which is that the Arabs at the time of the Prophet ﷺ had their own ways of navigating events and understanding how things happen. Human beings have a natural way or a natural instinct of wanting to understand why. What makes us different as human beings is that we don't just acknowledge what happened, but we want to know why it happened. You probably heard about in the ayat of Surah Al-Mulk that the jinn try to go into the sky and they want to know what is Allah written on the tablets, what is the fate of people. But Allah doesn't allow them to know. Human beings are kind of the same. We don't travel into the sky, but our mind does. We want to know, what did Allah write? We want to know what's causing something to happen. We want to know why. This is why we have science. If human beings weren't curious, we'd never have science. Because we want to know why. Why do things happen? We see these patterns happening. We see all these things that are somehow making sense. How can we construct it together in one mental representation, one understanding, and then make sense of it? We want to know why. So when we want to know why, then our approach to that has a huge effect. You can interpret the why in a positive manner or in a negative manner, and I'm going to stick to those two scopes because that's the topic. The Arabs had their own ways at that time, and you'll probably feel this to be very relevant, specifically if you come from some sort of cultural background, any cultural background, whether it's from the East or the West, because they both have their own interesting ways of how they interpret events. All people, all cultures. The Arab had their own ways of interpreting things. They wanted to know, the unseen. How can we know the unseen? How can we know what doesn't appear right in front of us? And so they had weird, strange superstitions, we'd call it, or ways of trying to map out what would be the outcome of something. So for example, if an Arab would go outside of his home at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and he's going out to work, if he sees a crow represents bad things, so you know what, let me go back home. I'm not going to go to work because it's going to be a bad day at work. The Arabs at the time of Rasulullah ﷺ had other ways as well. For example, if they wanted to go on a task, they would have a pigeon in a cage or something. And people still do things like this. The thing is, what's very strange is we think that we've progressed. But what's amazing is despite even our scientific progression as human beings, you can still go to very expensive properties in Miami and you'll see stores leased out to people who are called palm readers. I think, how are they even paying rent? That's what I think. But people must be coming to them, right? And we're in 2025. So this has nothing to do with, why are you talking about this? This is just the history of the Arabs. People are still doing it today. It's just changed in the way that it happens. How many of the new generation talks about these signs of stars and those things, right? You go to school and you hear people talking about it. And they you don't even ask them anything, and they introduce, my name is this, and my sign is this, and I'm that, right? So it's so pertinent. Anyways, so the Arab, if they wanted to do something, they would have a pigeon in a cage. They would unlock the cage. If that pigeon went to the right side, they'd say, okay, there's good luck with me. If it went to the left side, okay, I need to create a different plan. This was known as a concept known as safar. What is also called safar? Anyone know? Something to do with the calendar? Safar? A month? The month of Safar. The Arabs did not like the month of Safar. And this was because it was named after this concept of bad luck. And so they would stay away from doing things in the month of Safar. Or they would at times shrink the month of Safar if they wanted to do something. So if they wanted to fight a tribe or go on war, they wouldn't do it in the month of Safar. But maybe the itch is just too strong that they really want to fight. So they're going to say, okay, you know what, this year Safar is only 20 days. It comes in the Quran as well, this topic. So the Prophet ﷺ came and he said, La Safar. There's no reality to this. And he taught of this. And I'll explain to that why after. But we can relate to this very much. If you're from a certain part of the world, where I'm from, for example, if you've heard the term, the cat is crying, and that's bad luck. Right? Or a black cat is bad luck. Or don't get married in Muharram. Things like this, right? People say these things. And people really hold on to these things. And many other things as well. Even ayn, like the concept which the Prophet ﷺ talked about, which is the evil eye, we have a very misunderstood idea of what that is. And so what do people do to protect their kids from ayn? It's very common, at least in Pakistan. May Allah protect us. Make your child look ugly. Put like blackness on their face. You see the belief which is coming out in behaviors. You can't like really think this is something small. It's something really big. Why is this something so big? I said it has to do with faith. What does this have to do with faith? What's the problem with, looking at these things and trying to interpret signs? That if a bird goes this way, like this, or if that, then like this. If a cat is crying, then this. Why is there a problem with this? Because one starts to believe that these things can cause a certain outcome. What do we believe in Islam? That nothing can cause anything except by the will of Allah. So this is in exact opposition of Tawheed, which is why the Prophet ﷺ came to the Arab and he said, La safar. Don't believe in this. There's no concept of this safar, this bad month. La tiyara. There's no concept of bad omen. There's no concept of bad omen. That, we can automatically interpret signs and, this is Allah. People still do this. Allah ka azab. Who are you to say this is Allah's adab? Did any of us by any chance get VIP access to Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz, the tablets in the sky, where Allah Azza wa Jalla has written the fate of other people? And then what do? We start talking about people. You know what happened to their son because they did this? You know what happened to Fulan's wife because of this? May Allah protect us. This is so bad. So bad. Our society is plagued with this quality. This is why I'm talking about this. Because it's something very relevant. And I'll talk about social positivity at the end. This is against our iman. We don't believe in these things. You believe in La ilaha illallah and then you're scared of a black cat? How can you have such a powerful faith and then you're afraid of something so insignificant? The Prophet ﷺ said, La tiyara, you can't believe in this stuff. And at-tiyara to shirk, taking bad omens and these type of things and trying to read signs is shirk. Because you're assigning a sign or a cause to something which cannot cause. Only Allah can cause. Nothing happens except by the will of Allah. This is that very, what we would assume, simple statement, La ilaha illallah, which we teach our 1-year-old, 2-year-old, but it's so powerful. That nothing can happen by the will of Allah. And I'm just going to go on a little tangent. I mentioned Ayn earlier, which is why I'm going to just explain it. The evil eye. The evil eye cannot cause anything. Okay? Even if the Prophet ﷺ established that it's something, what he established now requires discussion, number one. But number two, the evil eye cannot cause anything, just like a cold or a cough cannot cause anything. It's just like any other illness. Because we think it has something to do with the spiritual realm, we think that it can cause something, it has some sort of power. It does not. Just like if Allah wills, an illness cannot take the life of a person unless Allah Azza wa Jalla has willed for it to do so. Just like Allah has told us, Rasulullah said, La adwa. In the same hadith, Rasulullah negated 3 things. La safar, no bad omens, no adwa. Contagion. Now science says that there's an idea of contagious disease. So then how do we reconcile? And I won't get into that too much because, the idea, why did Rasulullah say all of these 3 things in one hadith? It's not to say that contagion is not possible. You cannot become sick from one thing. But it's to say that, as when one Bedouin came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, you're saying there's no such thing as contagion. But if I send, in a very simple manner, I send a sick camel amongst a group of another camels, then they all become sick. So then what is it that you're saying?" So the Prophet ﷺ says to him, "Who made the first camel ill? Who made the first camel sick?" Right? So the idea being that ultimate cause belongs only to Allah Azza wa Jal. It doesn't belong to anything else. Right? This is why being negative is against faith. Reading negative signs is against faith. So then now a question comes. If being negative is bad because nothing can cause except for Allah, then why is being positive good if positivity can also not cause anything except what Allah wills? You understand the question? If negativity cannot cause anything, Right? If negative omens, negative signs cannot cause anything because only Allah can cause and only Allah's will can cause, then why did the Messenger of Allah allow being positive? And why did he encourage being positive? I'll give several signs. And this will hopefully be the last part of the conceptual understanding of this. Why did he say to be positive? Not because the positivity will necessarily cause something good, but because it plays a good role. What does it play? What are some of the roles of positivity? It keeps someone happy. It keeps someone hopeful. It keeps someone strong and confident. These are all qualities that believers are supposed to have. Because a person who's positive paints everything outside of them with what is inside of them. If you're a positive person inside, then you will naturally find positive signs outside. Which is why I said in the beginning, if you're positive inside, then what's the fruit of this quality of being positive, optimistic? You'll have positive thoughts of Allah, which we know is we're commanded to have. We're told to have good thoughts of Allah. We're told that Allah Azza wa Jal said, إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ, that no person can lose hope from Allah إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ, except disbelievers. We're told that you have to be positive, right? Not because the positivity will cause something, but number one, it plays many good functions. And one of the greatest function of it is that it will keep your faith strong. It will keep your iman strong. I'm going to give you one example. When I read this example, I read it for the first time, it was so interesting. We've heard of Fir'aun, the Pharaoh of Musa alayhi salam, enemy of Allah, enemy of Musa alayhi salam. When the mother of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam put Musa into a basket, into the river, and then that river took the basket, she had fear in her heart. She was told, be hopeful, Allah Azza wa Jalla will protect your child. Where did that child end up? Where did Musa alayhi salatu wasalam end up? In the hands of Fir'aun. When he ended up in the hands of Fir'aun, what did Imra'atu Fir'aun, the wife of Fir'aun, say? When she saw Musa, she said, this is a good sign. Let's protect this child, raise this child like it's our own. There's a reason why this child came to our doorstep, and it must be, Allah narrates in the Quran what she said, قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ لِي وَلَكَ, this child will be the coolness of our eyes. The tafsir of Imam Tabari rahimahullah says that when she said this, Fir'aun said to her, لَكَ وَلَكِنْ لَا لِي, he will be a coolness to your eyes, but not to my eyes. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says that Fir'aun was negative. Fir'aun's moment of negativity costed him the faith of his entire life. He was negative when Musa was a baby. He could never be positive with his message when he was an adult. You see the power of positivity? I was so shocked. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, what a statement. What a statement. Fir'aun was negative when this child was brought to him. So now he could only see this child as negative. So now the message of Musa is negative. And this costed Fir'aun Jannah and Jahannam. What was the cost of this? To either go to Jannah or to be forever an example of being punished. As Allah Azza wa Jalla said, we kept Fir'aun as an example for the people. So positivity, the way you think about things, your process of thinking has a direct connection with your faith, with your iman. Right? There's many ayat within which Allah Azza wa Jal, talks about some sort of idea of positivity. One great example is from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah Azza wa Jal narrates it in the Quran when the Prophet ﷺ went on the journey of the hijrah. What journey of the hijrah the Prophet ﷺ started in? The month of Safar. The month of Safar. The journey of the hijrah started in this month. The Prophet ﷺ is traveling with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. You know the story. They sought protection in a cave. They stayed there for some days. When the kuffar were following the tracks of the Prophet ﷺ and his companion, they came across that cave, Ghar of Thawr. They came across that cave, and as some narrations mention, they entered into that cave. They entered into that mountain, that cave. And they entered into a level, some narrations say, which was right above the Prophet ﷺ. So if they would have looked down, then they would have saw the Prophet ﷺ through the creeks, and they would have saw Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu hiding. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu heard the kuffar entering into this cave, he became very scared, not for himself, but for the Prophet ﷺ, because he wanted to protect the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he said to him, he said, don't be afraid, Ya Abu Bakr. What is your thought of two people whom the third of them is Allah? Hope, positivity. Allah Azza wa Jalla narrates this entire occasion, this event in the Quran, when in one of the ayat, Allah Azza wa Jalla says that, O people, if you are not going to aid the Prophet ﷺ, just remember that Allah was there for him. Allah protected him. إِذْ أَخْرَجَهُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا ثَانِي اثْنَيْنِ. When the people of Kufr took him out of Makkah Mukarramah, and he was left with only a second person, only one person to protect him. إِذْ هُمَا فِي الْغَارِ. Remember when they were in the cave. إِذْ يَقُولُ لِصَاحِبِهِ. When he said to his companion, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to Abu Bakr, لا تحزن, don't worry, Allah is with us. إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَنَا. Allah is with us. This is positivity in the light of seerah. Now in the hijrah, there's another instance which took place as well. Later on, when the Prophet ﷺ was traveling, there were many people who were after the Prophet, because there was a bounty placed on the Prophet ﷺ that bring him alive or dead and you'll get this much. A person by the name Buraidah somehow tracked the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. From a distance, they saw Buraidah coming to the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was worried again, he's suspicious. The Prophet ﷺ is completely calm. He comes to the Prophet ﷺ, he asks the Prophet, who are you? The Prophet ﷺ says, I'm Muhammad ﷺ. This is Abu Bakr. Then the Prophet ﷺ asks him, who are you? He says, my name is Buraidah. Buraidah is a name which comes from the three words or three letters baruda, which means to become cool. Becoming cool is also symbolic of becoming calm, becoming comfortable. So the Prophet ﷺ says, Ya Abu Bakr, qad baruda amruna. Don't worry, our matter has become calm. He seeks positivity from his name. And I'll explain this in a hadith when I'm done with the story. Then he asks, O Buraidah, what tribe are you from? He says, I'm from the tribe of Aslam. Aslam comes from the same word which means, what is salam? What does that mean? Peace, safety, right? The Prophet ﷺ says, Oh Abu Bakr, salimna, we're safe. He's finding any possibility of to be positive. He asks him, Abu Buraidah says, you know why I'm here? I'm here to take you back. How are you being so positive? They talk for some time. Buraidah says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And Buraidah radiallahu anhu becomes a Sahabi who came to take the life of the Prophet ﷺ, his companion, to capture them. He was won by the positive. And this is an entire topic I gave a khutbah on once. How did the Prophet ﷺ make people who used to bury their daughters alive because they saw bad omen in having a daughter? Having a daughter was, Allah Azza wa Jalla narrates it in the Quran, that if an Arab at the time of the Prophet ﷺ had a daughter, then what would happen to them? Their face would become muswaddan wa huwa kadhim. Their face would become black because of the perception of a bad omen, that a daughter is a bad sign. How did the Prophet ﷺ turn those people into the most hopeful people? The Sahaba. And you'd be shocked. Some of the people that actually did that action of burying their daughter, they became the Ashara Mubashara, the 10 Sahaba who were told you're entering into Jannah and Dunya. How did the Prophet ﷺ bring positivity out of people? That is such an interesting thing. Because that's how he turned them into who they became. So in the seerah, there's many instances of this, the Prophet ﷺ showing this positivity. So the Prophet ﷺ said about positivity, he said that, looking at these bad signs, this is impermissible. But then he said, أحسنها الفعل, that these things that you're engaging in, which is like, they're all very similar, when you're trying to interpret this seen reality with an unseen background, but you can't obviously see the unseen. None of us have seen the unseen. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So because there's a discrepancy between the unseen and the seen, a lot of times we make mistakes. So the Prophet ﷺ said, when you engage in this, number one, don't engage in it. Number one, don't engage in it. But if you're going to, then the best way to do it is fa'al, by staying positive. Right? Staying positive. This is why when you become sick, you stay positive. This is why when a trial comes towards you, you say there must be something good in it. That Allah Azza wa Jalla said, Asa an takrahu shay'an, it's very much possible that you might dislike something, وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِي خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا, but Allah might make a lot of good in it. Because we cannot see the unseen. We need to stop fooling ourselves into thinking that we can see the unseen just because we have Iman. We cannot see the unseen. Iman is not to give us access to the unseen so that we can see everything. We're not supposed to go around interpreting, why did this happen? That's not what we're supposed to do. Because what does the person do when they start doing this? Basically what you're saying is, this happened because of this, therefore Allah did this because of this. You're saying Allah did something because of this. You better be confident that what you're saying is true, because you're attributing something to Allah. You better be confident. And none of us have that confidence. None of us can say that. We're not given access to that. Even the messengers, the Anbiya, have access to the unseen to the degree Allah Azza wa Jalla gave it to them. So do not go around interpreting. So then what's the point of positivity then? In positivity, we're not interpreting. We're not trying to interpret. Because again, we don't know what's happening in behind the scenes. The purpose and function of positivity is not to know why Allah did something, but it's to know, what do I have to do in response to what's happening? It's what concerns you and I as people. We're not supposed to be concerned with Allah, as in what is He doing. Allah said in the Quran, لا يسأل عما يفعل. Allah is not inquired about why did He do something. We'll never get to the bottom of that. This is why the ulama say, Al-Qadru Sirrullah, fate is a secret from the secrets of Allah. We'll never get to the bottom of that. But being positive helps us as people, as human beings, as believers, to do what we need to do in the face of trial, for example. As it comes in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that it's very magnificent, the affair of the believer. If a trial comes upon him, he's patient. That's good for him. If a blessing comes upon him, he's thankful, and that's good for him. Meaning, it's not about whether it's a test or it's a blessing. That doesn't matter. That was already written by Allah. We're not going to change that. Allah's not inquired about what He does. We're not going to change what's behind the scenes. But we have a direct ability to respond to it the right way. What's the right way to respond to things? That if it's a test, you'll be patient, because that's how you show your positivity. You don't complain, right? You stay patient. That's the function of positivity. Now I'm going to exit the conceptual realm, because I don't want to talk too much about concepts. The Prophet ﷺ, I'll give some ahadith, and I want to end with a short story. The Prophet ﷺ loved positivity. He said, يُعْجِبُنِ الْفَأَلْ. Positivity is something very beloved to me. And when people would go out to do a task, for example, what's your response when someone says to you, I'm going to go become a doctor. A lot of times, what do people say? It's very unfortunate. Oh man, that's really tough. Are you sure about that? I'm going to go study deen in another country. Are you sure about that? Do you think you'll be able to bear it? I'm going to open up a halal business. Do you think you're going to make money? Are you sure? It's very common we do this. When the Prophet ﷺ saw someone about to take on a task, he would say to them, Ya Rashid, O guided one, you know what you're doing. He would say to them, Ya Najih, O finder of success, you're going to be successful. You'll find success. That's how you evoke positivity. From the get-go, from your words. Positive words, and this goes into the topic of how to use your tongue, but positive words. The Prophet ﷺ said that yu'ajibuni al-fa'al, I love positivity, and the best of positivity is a positive word. Say good words. Spread positivity. Don't spread negativity. There's already so much negativity out there in the world. We don't need more negativity. And there's a fallacy. Psychologists talk about this. People think that when they're more negative, they're more critical, so they're more accurate. That's not true. The reality is, as human beings, we're always influenced. And when we get influenced, we automatically become biased. People who are able to stay calm, see beyond that influence, they're the people that generally are able to see beyond, bad negative influences, or sometimes even bad positive influences. Sometimes there's too much optimism as well. Too much positivity can be a bad thing as well. That's a separate topic. But yeah. The Prophet ﷺ loved good words. You know what he said about people who are too negative? The Prophet ﷺ said, if you hear someone just always saying, halak an-nas, the people are done with. Oh, the ummah's done for. The ummah has no hope. The Prophet ﷺ said, فَهُوَ أَهْلَكُهُمْ, he's the most destroyed of them. And think about that statement, فَهُوَ أَهْلَكُهُمْ, he's the most broken inside from them. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us, my dear negative brother, the only reason you're seeing the ummah to be in this state, the only reason you're seeing the world to be like this, is because of the negativity in yourself. Clear that mirror, polish that mirror. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? The Muslim ummah is a bunch of mirrors. We mirror each other. If you clean that mirror enough, free it from ego a little bit, polish it, take the dirt off of it, it'll shine. And you'll see positivity. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ saw. That's what he saw in people who committed the greatest atrocities, and then he turned them into people known as the Sahaba. The Sahaba before Islam were in the darkness that all the Arab were in. It was the Prophet's positivity that made them who they were. The instance of Taif is a great example of this. Where the Prophet ﷺ went on the journey of Taif, 10th year of the Hijrah, and we know the story. When he went to them, he wanted to call them to Islam. Instead, they rebelled. They stoned him. They didn't just tell him to go away. They stoned him. They told their children to follow him miles, and they stoned him. When the Prophet ﷺ was left alone for some time, and he was approached by Jibreel, Jibreel said, I brought the angel of the two mountains of Taif to you. Command him and he'll crush the people. What did he say? He said, I am very hopeful that from their lineage, children will be born who will bring Iman. What a positivity. What a sense of optimism. The Prophet ﷺ was bloody. How do you even be positive? When we see the state of our brothers and sisters in Gaza, may Allah Azza wa Jalla protect them. Can't make enough dua for them. But a lot of people have been so influenced that they've lost hope and they can't have any hope. And you can make sense of it. It's been going on for 2 years. How long? I can understand when I myself have felt, what is it? What's going on? Why? But I was thinking about it the other day. And I was specifically thinking about it in light of a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, another hadith about positivity, that if one of you were to see Qiyamah starting right now, and you had a seed in your hand, plant that seed. If you see Qiyamah happening, is that seed going to become a tree? But he still said, be hopeful, because you're not supposed to be concerned of the outcome. Again, qadar, outcome, fate is in the hands of Allah. That's not your job to begin with. It's not my job to begin with. It's our job to do something good. So he said, even if Qiyamah is starting, you know the seed's not going to become a tree, plant the seed. I was thinking of this in light of the people of Gaza, Palestine. If you really think about what's been happening in the past 2 years, people in the world that can actually do something are doing nothing. But people who can't do anything are doing something. Think about all the funds that we felt bad. I know we felt bad many times of ourselves. How can we even drive a nice car? How can we eat good food? What's happening to our lives? Those feelings are normal and to some degree good. And I won't get into that in specific. But think about it. It gives me so much hope. People have gathered so much funds. We don't even know if those funds are going to get to them. We don't even know how much has got to them. We don't know how much has stopped outside of the boundaries of Gaza and Palestine. And for months it's not reaching them. But many of us kept doing it. We gave whatever we could. And we kept doing it. When Allah wants to use you, and if you're positive, then even if you can't do anything, He will make you do something. Think about all the doctors that went. A medical doctor is not a politician. They don't have power. They're not a sultan. They don't have a state under them. They don't have an army. They risk their lives. They go for a week, a few weeks, even longer. They leave their families behind. One of my friends, he's from California, he said, although I was going with a lot of protocol when I went, a lot of protection, still something in me said, you know what, let me meet my family as if it's the last time, But they went, many of them. They did whatever they could. When Allah wants to take work from you, stay positive. He'll take it from you. But if you're not positive, if you don't have the right intentions, then you may be a person in power, but you'll do nothing. And we've seen that. Right? So this gave me a lot of hope when I thought about this. But anyways, the Prophet ﷺ, for these many reasons, he loved positivity so much. I want to speak about a few specific instances. I'll mention a short story as well. I was mentioning that the Prophet ﷺ brought out the positivity of people. There was a Sahabi, his name was Suhail radiallahu anhu. He was one of the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ in the beginning. And he was known to be very eloquent. So although he never tortured the Prophet ﷺ or many of his companions, or he never fought against them, he used his tongue to fight them. And so in the Battle of Badr, Suhail was captured. When Suhail was captured, Umar radiallahu anhu really didn't like him. So Umar radiallahu anhu said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, we have Suhail sitting in the masjid. He used his tongue against you so much, let me cut it off. The Prophet ﷺ said, number one, we don't do that. As Muslims, we don't mutilate people. Even in war, we have rules. We have etiquettes. We have rules. Nobility. We don't mutilate people. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, maybe, how do you know Allah will use this tongue for something good that will make you happy one day? Fast forward a few years now. The Prophet ﷺ is going to Makkah Mukarramah with his companions. It's approximately the 6th year of the Hijrah. They're going to perform Umrah. And they were stopped. We know this instance as the story of Sulhul Hudaybiyah. That at the mark of Hudaybiyah, a treaties was written between the believers of Medina and the disbelievers of Makkah. And lo and behold, who is writing the treaties for the kuffar, for the disbelievers of Makkah? it is who will later be Suhail radiallahu anhu. But today he's Suhail, just Suhail. When the Prophet ﷺ says to Ali radiallahu anhu, write Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Suhail says, we don't believe in ar-Rahman, we don't believe in Rahim. We're going to say Bismillah only. The Prophet ﷺ says to Ali, okay fine, write that. He says, Ya Ali, write Muhammad Rasulullah ﷺ, Muhammad the Messenger of Allah. Suhail says, I'm just letting you know like how much of an enemy he was with the Prophet ﷺ. Suhail says, Muhammad ﷺ, if we believed you were Rasulullah, we wouldn't be in your opposition. You're going to write Muhammad bin Abdullah, Muhammad the son of Abdullah. On that day, the son of Suhail, Abu Jandal, who was a mu'min, he was a believer, but his father tied him at home. Somehow, he fled his home. He freed himself and he fled. He found out that the believers are coming to Hudaybiyah for Umrah. I'm going to go there. He comes, he sees that the people of Islam and the people of Kufr are writing a treatise. So he starts to rush so that he can get to the Sahaba and gain safety. His father sees him, he says, stop. Why? Because in the treatise, it was written that if people of Islam who are originally from Mecca try to flee to Medina, the people of Medina will have to return them back to Mecca. But if anyone flees from Medina to Mecca, then the people of Mecca will not return the people of Medina back. It was very unfair. Abu Jandal, right when this is being written, is bloody, tortured by his father, Suhail, and he's begging, let me go. Rasulullah ﷺ starts begging Suhail, please, just one, just Abu Jandal. Some of the Sahaba would say that we named this day the day of Abu Jandal because we felt so bad. We never felt on any day that we wanted to disobey the Messenger of Allah so much and just not follow what he's saying and go save Abu Jandal. But the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mu'minuna ala shurutihim, believers are on their conditions. We've agreed to a treaty, we're going to have to honor it. Suhail takes Abu Jandal back. It was such a sad moment. Fast forward a few more years. We're in the year approximately 9th year of the Hijrah, Fath Makkah. Now the kuffar are, the year after, exactly, the year after Sulh al-Hudaybiyah. The kuffar are weak. The Prophet ﷺ and the people of Iman are strong. So now the people of Iman, because the people of Kufr, the people of Mecca, break the treaties, now that treaties is no longer conditional. They broke it, so now the mu'minun don't have to keep their part either. So the Prophet ﷺ and the people of Medina come to Mecca and they come in conquest. We're going to take Mecca back. When this happens, Suhail hides in his house. Suhail hides in his house because he knows, just last year I was writing against the Prophet ﷺ. He hides in his home for many days. Some people started to talk about Suhail, that, do you see Suhail, he's a coward. He's afraid to come out of his home. The Prophet ﷺ said to them, stop speaking bad about Suhail. He's a person whom Allah has granted a very strong intellect. He's a very smart person. Why did the Prophet ﷺ say this? He wanted this statement to be conveyed to him. To say that, oh Suhail, I know you're smart, become a Muslim. He said, I know he's smart. He's intellectual. He's intelligent. Suhail accepts Islam. Now the same Suhail radiallahu anhu, I was saying that, each time the Prophet ﷺ was being hopeful with him. The first time, don't cut his tongue, he's going to use his tongue for the sake of Islam. The second time, don't talk bad about him, he's smart. The Prophet ﷺ is defending him, defending an enemy. The same Suhail radiallahu anhu, we're going to fast forward a few more years in the seerah. In the year of the Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ performs Hajj. When the Prophet ﷺ completes his Hajj, the Prophet ﷺ asks some of the Sahaba to bring camels for him. And he sacrifices many camels. Each camel for every year he lived. And the Sahaba were astonished, but this was his gratitude. He wanted to show gratitude. So he sacrificed. Who was serving the Prophet ﷺ? Suhail radiallahu anhu. Umar radiallahu anhu narrates the story. He says, I saw Suhail radiallahu anhu a changed person on the day of the Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, I saw the Prophet ﷺ shaving his head. And I saw this man Suhail, who hated the Prophet, on that day go to the Prophet ﷺ, bow down, grab his hair and put it on his eyes out of honor for the Prophet ﷺ. How did the Prophet ﷺ positivity turn such an enemy into someone who loved the man so much? He loved the Prophet ﷺ so much that he's taking his hair and he's putting it on his eyelids. You know, as the Arabs would say, ala al-ra's wal ayn. Oh Rasulullah, you're above our heads. You're above our heads. How did he create such a man? This is what's called bringing the positivity out of other people. This is how the Prophet ﷺ created the Sahaba. And Suhail bin Amr radiallahu anhu, he's not one of the Ashra Mubashara. He's not one of the Khulafa. He's one of the Sahaba, of course. He's not maybe one of the very famous ones that we know, Umar and Ali radiallahu anhum ajma'in. But what a love he had for the Prophet ﷺ. So I'm going to end with just, two things. Family, community. Be positive in your family. It's so important. How many times in our family, so many problems happen, and in reality, nothing actually happened. But before anything even happens, we're already interpreting something negative is going to happen. And then we create a problem. And I didn't even get the chance, but in my other talk, I spoke about the neuropsychology of this. That if you become negative all the time and you interpret things in negativity so much, your brain becomes programmed in that way. And then everything you're going to see, it's built in you. You have the choice to either make your brain a positive brain or a negative brain. But it depends what pattern you create. If at any moment anything happens, you interpret it as something negative, you'll continue doing that. And then anything that happens, anyone wants to talk to you about something, something was misplaced. Maybe it was misplaced because of a reason. There's context. This is why then what do psychologists have to do when people become so negative? Look at the context. Think about it. Why are you being so negative? Think about why you're thinking this way. And how many times do we think negatively about family members and they never actually meant it the way that what was apparent to you, was apparent to me? Between husbands and wives, this happens so much between couples, that nothing happens, but the benefit of doubt is not given. In the beginning of a marriage, for example, you're getting used to each other, you're getting used to each other's communication. If you're not going to be positive, that's going to cause a lot of problems. And then you're going to build patterns. And you're going to automatically think that what your partner is saying something negative when it's not something negative. And then you're going to get angry. And then your partner is going to say, why are you getting so angry? They won't understand. This happens in families. This happens between parents and children. Children have automatic negative thoughts about their parents, or the other way around, parents have automatic negative thoughts. This child of mine is sharati, he definitely is. He's going to cause problems. So now automatically every single thing he does is going to be troublemaking. Very important. I won't go too much in detail of it because I should end now. But family, clean the thoughts that you have. The Prophet ﷺ said this, إِذَا ظَنَنْتَ, when you have these bad thoughts, فَلَا تُحَقِّقْ, don't try to go, you thought negative now, so you're going to start investigating. And until that negative thought becomes a reality, you're not going to stop. Don't do that. It's very bad. Prophet ﷺ said, don't do that. It's going to create problems. And then we wonder why we have so many problems. We're doing these things ourselves. It's not ayn. It's not nazar. We're blaming our Fulan Puppy in Pakistan, saying that she's doing jadoo. One of your relatives is doing jadoo, beta. One of your relatives is doing black magic. Do you know the implications of your words? Your words are stronger than magic. If you use positive words, you'll build a positive family. If you use negative words, it will affect. May Allah protect us. Community, the last thing, very important. Build a positive community. Build a positive community. Something I've noticed in the youth is that a lot of Muslim youth lack self-esteem and confidence. And a lot of youth are very afraid of anything they do. Anything they do. Some of them are even afraid of becoming too religious because they're going to be evaluated wrong. Some of them are afraid of, habits that they have, bad habits. And they will never go to change those habits because they're afraid if they talk about it with the imam, who will protect that, or a therapist who will maintain confidentiality. But they're so afraid of an evaluative society that society is evaluating all the time. And we do this, we know this. Psychologists talk about collectivist societies. Muslims are a collectivist society. We're very united. And this is a good thing. But it does have some negative consequences as well. Which is that when you know each other so well, you're so afraid, log kya kahenge? What are people going to say? Wallahi, I have seen people who have problems and they need to fix those problems, but they don't want to because they're afraid that those problems will escape. If the problems escape, what will people say? They will go their whole lives with a destroyed marriage, with bad habits, with a destroyed family, because we don't want people to evaluate us badly. We need to work on this. We need to work on this as a Muslim community. We cannot build such a strong evaluative community. We're always evaluating people. I deal with this with many new Muslims as well. Many new Muslims are very sensitive and very scared sometimes to come to masajid because they don't know the deen. They're learning. Young people as well. If they're going to be evaluated all the time, negatively, what's going to happen? We have to work on this. I'm not saying that we're entirely a bad community. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this is something we can definitely work on. That make it normal. That families have problems. Which family doesn't? Make it normal that we all have challenges. Nobody's sitting here without sins. Nobody's sitting here perfect. Nobody here is a Nabi. So then why don't just acknowledge it? That we all need help sometimes. Sometimes in life we need help. If we do this, then people will seek help. And if people will seek help, that's the beginning of change. That's the beginning of change. So we need to build a positive society. This is a goal. Community, positive community. Positive, say positive things. Make the first thing, and it's supposed to be, right? What is the first thing you say? You say, Assalamu alaikum. Like, what can be more positive than that? You can't follow Assalamu alaikum with something negative after that. That's contradictory. Don't say negative things to people. It's not a good habit. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect all of us. May Allah Azza wa Jal reward all of you for sitting positively throughout my talk. May Allah Azza wa Jal build our community with a positive nur, positive light which the Prophet ﷺ gave to us. May Allah Azza wa Jal build our hearts upon positivity so that we can believe in Allah with positivity, and so that one day our beliefs will become a reality when Allah Azza wa Jal will be merciful to us in the hereafter. And those positive thoughts will come to fruition. Those positive thoughts that you think are just insignificant thoughts in this life, they'll be very strong in the hereafter. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us that ability. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.